Look, all jokes aside, Lumis and Umbra were brave enough to tag duel the two strongest characters to ever exist in a Yu-Gi-Oh series, Yugi and Kaiba, so we gotta respect them. Hello everybody, and welcome back to more of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dynasty series deck profiles. It's me, Cooper, and today we're going to be talking about Lumis and Umbra. That's right, we're going to be putting their decks together into one person, and that one person may be able to be in our tournament. So, these are the rare hunters that worked under Marik, and they were probably the most powerful duelists under Marik. I know we should count Strings and Slifer because that deck seemed pretty unstoppable, but let's be honest, it's mostly Lumis and Umbra because they didn't just fight Yugi, they fought Yugi and Kaiba. And that's a horrifying combo to fight. I would never in a million years want to take those two on. So I gotta give them respect for doing that, but let's go ahead and get into their deck. This deck has two ace monsters, but I'm only going to show off one, and that is Masked Beast Desgardius. Masked Beast Desgardius is a very powerful monster at 3,300 attack. Blue Eyes White Dragon, eat your heart out. This thing will destroy you. So, it has 3,300 attack and an interesting effect where if this card gets destroyed by... Wait, is it destroyed by battle? Let's find out together. Let's see, including yada yada, I don't want to read this. The only way to special summon is to have one Melkid, the Grand Tiki Elder, or Melkid, the four-faced beast on the field, and then tribute that with another monster, but it counts as a special summon, funny enough. So that means you could still perform a normal summon on the same turn. It's not the hardest monster to summon, especially since they run 3 of each of those cards that they need to summon this boss monster. Basically what happens when this card gets destroyed, what you could do is you get one Mask of Remnants from your deck and you attach it to an opponent's monster like a Dark Necrofear and you steal your opponent's monster. It's actually really good. So if you lose your 3,300 beater to a Tribute to the Doom or something like that, it's okay because you could still just steal your opponent's monster. Getting into their rare cards, they have a ton of rare cards. Cards you are never going to see again. So I think the cards we're going to focus on are the Mask of Brutality and the Mask of Restrict. The reason we're focusing on these two masks in particular is because these two seem to be like the most important ones. Mask of Restrict says neither player can tribute cards. It doesn't say tribute summon, it simply says tribute cards, which means no tributes are allowed for effects, no tributes are allowed for summoning, no tributes are allowed in general. You can't even ritual summon because ritual cards are tributes in a way. You need to tribute monsters for a ritual. It's kind of crazy. Mask of Restrict will make it so both opponents only can play with their base monsters. No tributes, no nothing. It's kind of insane. There are some cards that can get around this, like the Fiend Mega Cyber, which can be special summoned, like a Cyber Dragon, which doesn't exist yet, but Mask of Restrict is pretty freaking busted. Mask of Brutality, the reason this card is busted is because what it does is you gain 1,000 attack on the monster you give it to, and you lose 1,000 offense. Who cares? A 1,000 attack point equip spell card. This is extremely unique. It's probably the only one you're going to see in this tournament. It's so freaking good. But during your standby phase, you must pay 1,000 life points or destroy the card. So you're allowed to say, I don't want to pay the life points, the card gets destroyed, or you say, I will pay the life points, I want to keep my 1,000 attack points. So it is quite a heavy cost, but it's totally worth it. 1,000 attack points is super good. Getting on into their stats, Lumis and Umbra's stats are, for attack anyway, not too good. And the reason they are not too good is because they run cards that are below 1,700. In fact, every single one of their monsters level 4 and lower is below 1,700. Now, some of them are way below 1,700, like the Mask of Darkness and the Masked Sorcerer, but I was able to buff up their attack stat from like really low because they have two of the strongest cards in the game, Masked Beast Desgardius, the freaking tribute special summon monster I was just talking about, the rare card, their ace monster, and their other boss monster, the Masked Beast ritual monster at 3,200 attack. I almost gave them a base stat of an average attack stat of 4. I decided against it because they do have just way too many weak monsters. Melkid and Grand Tiki are at 15, which is okay. They have Shining Abyss at 16, which is okay. They have Rojdal at 16, which is okay. But they're not good. And the rest of their monsters, they have like a Jellyfish at 1200 and Mass Sorcerer and freaking Mask of Darkness at 900. It's just not very good. They are definitely below the average, but they can make up for that with the Mask of Brutality, so that's not too bad. A 1600 monster becomes Buster Blader basically. They get 2600 attack. So they could fall behind on, they could fall back on that as long as their opponent doesn't stall them and they have to keep paying 1000 life points. So let's move on to their defense stats. Not any good either, to be honest. It's below average. Their best defending monster is above the average, Shining Abyss at 1800. After that, everything else falls below the average except Jellyfish at 1500, which hits the average. Everything is terrible. Literally 1200, 1200, 1000, 1400's okay. 415. It's just not good. Shining Abyss at 1800 is their best defensive monster. And then, of course, their Tribute monster has 2500 defense, and the Ritual monster is 18, which is not good. Honestly, not good. So that is not very helpful. But they do have a trap card that can help them called the Mask of Weakness, which is basically like a Rush Recklessly reversed. It's a trap card that when you flip it, you pick a monster on the field and it loses 700 attack. So when your opponent is attacking you, oh, it has to be an attacking monster anyway. When your opponent's attacking you, just activate Mask of Weakness and weaken your opponent. It's the best way to play the card. They also have Mask of the Accursed, which what it does is literally it just makes it so your opponent cannot attack you, and then you also get to burn them, but that's something for later. Let's go ahead and get on to their speed stats. Not very good either. I'm sorry. Literally, the best thing about their speed stat is they run the card Mask of Darkness, which can search traps from the graveyard. They run the card, their ace monster, Mass Beast Asgardius, which can special summon if you have one Melkid and one other monster on the field. And they run the card Chosen One, which is super bad, but you might as well have it, where you pick one monster card in your hand and two non-monster cards in your hand. And then what you do is your opponent picks one of those 3 cards. If they pick the monster, you get to special summon it and throw the other 2 to the graveyard. If they pick the spell or trap card, you throw all 3 cards to the graveyard. It's an extremely hard special summon to pull off, but in test duels, my friend Wookie did. So it's actually kind of helpful, especially for getting out Mass Beast Asgardius. But what are you going to do? You can't use Chosen One to get Mass Beast Asgardius, but you can use Chosen One to get another monster in the field to make Mass Beast Asgardius easier to summon. So guys, that's going to be it for the speed stat. Again, everything's been below average so far. They at least have some potential here and there, but it's not very good. Let's get into the new stat, the skills stats also. I can't believe this, but they are actually all below average. Now, the skill stat, he does, Lumis and Umbra do have burn options. Mask of the Accursed will burn the opponent it is equipped to. So, say your opponent summoned the Dark Magician and it's beating you. Okay, play Mask of the Accursed, it's an equipped spell. You put it on your opponent's monster, that monster can no longer attack, and they take 500 burn every standby phase. It's very good for a burn card. And they run the Mask of Dispel, which is a spell card where what it does is for one face-up spell on the field, it could be a field spell, continuous spell, swords, it could be anything that's face-up spell. An equipped spell for crying out loud. If you play this on one of your opponent's equipped spells or opponent's spell face-up spells, they will take 500 damage each turn. So it is super helpful for burn decks. The weakness of Mask of Dispel is it has to be a face-up spell card. So it's not too bad. Honestly, having a 500 burn card is super nice, and they have 2 of them, which is why they at least have some skill. Just some skill. Other than that, they don't really have much. Moving on to their brick stat. That is not bad. For this series, having 6 bars on a brick stat isn't the best, but it's not too bad. It's super doable. I think Lumis and Umbra, when it comes to breaking, it won't happen too often. They do have tons of monsters they could summon. Basically because I gave them 3 copies of everything, except their boss monsters, because that would just brick up their deck, and I'm trying to be nice to them. But yeah, they probably could do it. The only brick cards they really run are the Ritual monster and the Ritual spell. Every other card has a use. Chosen One could be kind of bad, honestly. That could break up your hand. Mask of Remnants is a card that can break up their hand, but when you play it, it goes right back into the deck. But it's still a brick card, so you don't want to draw that. That's about it, though. I think their brick stat is still pretty freaking decent. Every card in here has a use. Just not the Ritual card, because it'll probably never happen, and Mask of Remnants. Those are the only ones. So, moving on to the potential of Lumis and Umbra. The potential for Lumis and Umbra to win this tournament is a 1.5. This should not be hard to understand. Look at those stats. The stats alone should be able to explain why. They don't have very good attack stats, but they at least have Mask of Brutality, which is a double-edged sword. They don't have very good defense stats, but they at least have Mask of Weakness, which, you know, that's for one attack at least. They don't have very good speed stat, but they at least have Mass Beast Asgardius, which can special summon. They at least have Chosen One, and they at least have Mask of Darkness to bring back the trap cards. But it's still not very good. They at least have some burn options. They have Mask of Dispel, they have Mask of the Accursed. But that only works on one card each, and they're good in situations. They're not very good for winning an entire duel. It's just not possible. Their best skill card would probably be Mask of Restrict, since it just says no one gets to play the game until this card gets MST'd. But overall, they just they're not very good at anything. They just have below average everything. It's kind of sad. Like, I remember last season we had Rex Raptor average everything. These guys are below average everything. And we don't really need to count the brick stats, since most people's brick stats, except like Yugi's, is pretty bad. I mean, pretty good. So, yeah, Lumis and Umbra, guys, in this tournament, I want to say they are not going to win the tournament. Now, we saw last season that a 1-star character and a 1.5-star character made it to the finals. So maybe it's possible. Maybe, but maybe I'm getting better at this too. Maybe I'm getting better at deck profiles, because honestly, I don't think they're going to make it. Anyone that gets this deck, it's definitely doable. You can win a duel with this deck. I just don't think you can win the tournament with this deck. So that's going to be it, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Peace.